Gentiles playing the Most High. Technology? 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called the Most High, or that is worshipped, so that he as the Most High sitteth in the temple of the Most High, showing himself that he is the Most High. These underlying words will be defined and the scripture reread for clarity. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4. Let no certain one seduce or beguile you by any ways, any manner of life, or any character. For that day shall not come, except there come a defection from truth first, and that human being, man or woman, that wanderer from the law of the Most High, that violator of the Most High's laws, be disclosed, a descendant of destruction, who is adverse, and adverse means preventing success or development, harmful or unfavorable, and carries oneself haughtily. Haughty means arrogantly superior or showing contempt or lack of respect. Superimposing of time, place, or order. Superimposition means the act of adding some of the qualities of one system or pattern to another one in order to produce something that combines the qualities of both. Superimposing all that is called the Most High, or that is worshipped, so that he, as the Most High, confers a kingdom on one or appoints oneself in the spiritual temple consisting of the saints of all ages joined together by an Hamashiach, showing, exhibiting, or demonstrating himself that he is the Most High. And that appointing himself in the spiritual temple is in the children of Israel over these thousands of years by the heathen and subjugating the Israelites. Isaiah chapter 14, verses 12 to 17. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations, the Gentiles or the heathen, and also can include the Israelites. For thou hast said in thine heart, O mind, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of the Most High. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, Is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms, that made the world as a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of his prisoners? Technology? When anything is against the will of the Most High, it is an abomination. An abomination is something that is hated by the Most High.
artificial wombs might sound more like science fiction than science, but in a recent study in the journal Nature, scientists described an artificial womb for mouse embryos that actually worked, and it could bust the field of developmental biology wide open. Here's the thing about mammals. Typically, their embryos need to grow in a living uterus, and that makes it kind of hard to study their development. We can't just peek our heads in there, see what's going on. And that's kind of a shame, since mammals are the best models for understanding exactly what's going on in pregnant people's bodies. Intel which could help us prevent and treat conditions that can arise in utero. Now, we might actually be able to watch mammalian development happen in real time, thanks to an experimental setup that can sustain mouse embryos outside the uterus. This artificial womb consists of clear vials filled with nutrient-rich fluids attached to a rotating wheel. The rotation keeps the embryos from sticking to the walls of the vials, which can interrupt development. These researchers didn't invent this setup from nothing, it's based on previous experiments, but those attempts only managed to sustain the embryos for a day or less. A big factor in this team's success was the ventilation system they designed, which provides oxygen and carbon dioxide to the embryos. With it, the researchers could precisely control the concentration and pressure of these gases, which allowed them to better mimic what fetuses experience in utero. And it worked. In their study, they report taking mice fetuses out of the uterus after 5 days of development and sustaining them in the artificial wombs for another 6 days. The scientists also claim, in as yet unpublished experiments, they've made it 11 days starting with 0-day-old embryos, so ones pulled from the parent mouse right after fertilization. Either way, that's about halfway through the mouse's 20-day gestation, around the time fetuses start developing legs. And incredibly, the lab-grown embryos appeared to develop normally. But they only made it for those 11 days, and the scientists think that's because they haven't quite figured out how to scale up the nutritional supplement for the next stages of development. The team is already working on solving that, though, and are making progress with more recent experiments. They hope that soon they'll be able to grow mouse embryos from fertilization to birth inside their artificial womb. And if they succeed, their technology would allow for highly detailed embryological studies, which could help answer all sorts of questions about problems that can arise during development. It may also open the door to major ethical questions about artificially grown animals or even humans, but we still have some time before we crack that whole can of worms open. While we're on the subject of sci-fi-worthy medical tech, though, another team of researchers recently reported that they've produced an artificial heart valve that could make it much easier to treat children with heart conditions. See, our circulatory systems, including our arteries, veins, and hearts, use valves to control the flow of blood. If these don't work properly, a person may need surgery to replace them with artificial versions. But that's not so straightforward when the patient is a child, because children grow and artificial valves don't. A kid with a heart condition may have to replace their valves half a dozen times before they reach adulthood and stop growing, and that is just a lot of heart surgeries. But according to the new paper published in Science Translational Medicine, it's possible to create valves in the lab that grow. To make these growing valves, researchers started with skin cells from sheep. They placed these cells inside a tube of gel that encouraged them to develop an extracellular matrix, the soft tissue between cells that holds them together and facilitates cellular communication. Once the cells had done this, they were washed away, leaving behind a tube of this matrix. The researchers then knit multiple tubes together to create a flexible matrix in the shape of a heart valve. The trick ended up being getting the right toughness. Their early attempts weren't strong enough at the seams, so the valves fell apart over time when they faced the pressure of actual blood. But eventually, the researchers came up with a multi-tube design that held together and functioned like a normal valve. And when they implanted these tubes into living lambs, the lamb's native cells invaded the empty matrix and took over the task of keeping it healthy. Their cells even expanded it as needed, so the valves remained functional for 12 full months as the lambs developed into adult sheep. The researchers think the same thing could be done with human cells to replace human valves, so their next step is to get approval for clinical trials. Every year, hundreds of children need to undergo heart surgery to replace defective valves. So if this technology ends up working in people like it did for those lambs, it could remove the need for repeated operations and make those kids' lives a lot easier. Which would be great, because it's not every day that a scientific study is so heartwarming. Thanks for watching this episode of SciShow News.
And here's a story straight out of science fiction, replacing human pregnancies with artificial wombs. I know the idea sounds dystopian, but it may be a fast approaching reality. Dutch scientists are working on it. Influential people are promoting it, like the co-founder of cryptocurrency Ethereum. He recently pitched synthetic wombs as a solution to the income disparities between men and women. He said they could reduce the burden of pregnancy and help women earn equally at their workplaces. Interestingly, he made the suggestion to Tesla CEO Elon Musk. Why did he reach out to Musk? Our next report tells you.
Meet Vitalik Buterin, the co-founder of Ethereum, the second best cryptocurrency after Bitcoin. The 27-year-old inventor has pitched a bold solution to end the economic disparities between men and women and also to prevent our planet from a population collapse. He wants to replace pregnant women with synthetic wombs, a proposal that has drawn the wrath of feminists. Buterin shared this techno-utopian solution in a Twitter exchange with the ultimate tech visionary Elon Musk. Of late, the Tesla tycoon has been expressing his concerns about an impending global population collapse. He's been sharing tweets about falling birth rates the world over, which Musk says won't leave enough people for his relocation plans to Mars. Buterin chimed in to Musk's complaints online with a controversial solution: synthetic wombs. He even shared a graph to justify his views. It pointed out how women's earnings drop significantly after a child, but for men, they remain unchanged. Synthetic wombs, according to him, can remove the high burden of pregnancy and reduce income disparities. This wild suggestion has split the internet. While some have welcomed it, the others are calling it crazy. Those in favor say they would love to have more options and prioritize their health. Some others say that it would help them escape an environment where men condition women. And yet others think that bearing child the exact same way women have forever is just deeply regressive. Those against synthetic wombs say women do not need to defy the laws of nature to be treated equally. They say pregnancy connects them to the natural world like nothing else, and that synthetic wombs would be the same as growing new species in a lab. The debate continues, but the question is, can we really make a synthetic womb? Well, we already are. Scientists in the Netherlands say they are just 10 years away from developing an artificial womb that could save the lives of premature babies. Premature birth is said to be the biggest cause of death among newborns. Dutch researchers say that an artificial uterus could solve this problem. The technology sounds promising, but there are still ethical dilemmas to overcome. Will the technology only be used in emergency situations, or will it also be available for those mulling an abortion? Will it be available for all individuals or only for those who can afford it? And above everything else, is letting machines replicate every human element of life a good idea? Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
For the first time, a baby has been born using a new three-person fertility technique. American doctors say the baby boy has the usual DNA from his mother and father, plus an element of genetic code from a donor. Well, the process allows the baby to be free of a condition that his mother carries in her genes, and they say it could help other families with rare genetic conditions. As our medical correspondent Fergus Walsh reports.
A world first in genetics and IVF, carried out by American doctors in Mexico, a country chosen because there are no laws there to prevent it. The baby's face has been blurred because his parents, from Jordan, want to remain anonymous. He's now 5 months old and is said to be healthy. This technique is aimed at preventing often fatal genetic diseases from being passed on. The nucleus of the mother was removed, leaving behind the faulty DNA in these structures known as mitochondria. It was put into a second woman's egg containing only healthy mitochondria. This was fertilized. The embryo had all the key genes from the parents, plus a tiny amount of DNA from the donor, which is now in every one of the baby boy's cells.
It's actually quite a significant moment. It's really the proof of a long process that was initiated in the UK in terms of public and parliamentary debate and a lot of the science, showing that you can apply these technologies and ultimately produce a healthy baby at the end.
Three-person IVF is legal in the UK. It's just not been done yet. But this team in Newcastle is close to applying for a licence to use a slightly different technique to that in Mexico. Among those hoping to benefit are Victoria and Keith. Their daughter Jessica has a serious inherited genetic disorder. They would like treatment to ensure a second child would be healthy. Fergus Walsh, BBC News.
Well, the doctor responsible for carrying out this landmark treatment is Dr. John Zhang. Here he is, holding the world's first baby that has been born using that three-person fertility technique. And I'm pleased to say that we can now speak to Dr. John Zhang, who joins us now live from New York. Welcome to the programme. How did that moment feel for you? We just saw the picture of you holding the baby. Just tell us how you felt.
And we still cannot believe it's a reality, because it's almost become a process for the last 20 years to aim this moment. But when this moment came, we just couldn't believe it. It's a reality.
Mitochondrial donation, this three-person fertility technique. For those people that don't know, just tell us very briefly how it works.
Well, you use a technique, it's called a nuclear transfer. So basically, each cell consists of two parts: cytoplasma, such as the egg white, and a nucleus, such as egg yolk. So this technique is swap the egg yolk from one egg to another egg to let the good healthy egg white to help the egg yolk, which has the real DNA, which determines who you are, who we are, and to carry on the new life.
Your team had to travel to Mexico to carry out this procedure because there are no laws there to prohibit this. It is a very controversial technique. Some would say that, in essence, you're playing God here, creating some kind of a genetic order baby, a manufactured source, if you like. What would you say to that?
I would like to make 2 points. First of all, answer the second question first. We are not really play the God, but in the human reproductive life, we do in vitro fertilization, we do pre-implantation genetic screen test. So we are doing many things are very similar. To answer the first question, New Hope Fertility Center have clinics in Mexico and New York. And for this part of the project, we are just allocated to the Mexico City. This is just our clinical and strategic plan.
This baby, the world's first that has been born, was born to a Jordanian family where the family had already experienced the heartache of 4 miscarriages, as well as the death of 2 children, one at 8 months and the other at 6 years of age. This procedure, groundbreaking though it is there a 100% guarantee for the health of this baby now?
Well, we cannot say it's a 100% guarantee, but from all the measurement and from the baby development, it's very, very promising. The baby will live a normal, healthy life. And since this is a boy, and the baby will not pass along any mitochondrial DNA to the next generation.
So there is no indication in this child of the Lee syndrome, that was the genetic disorder that the mother was carrying down to each child. That child does not have this?
Not at all. And as a matter of fact, the mother even can feel that the baby is completely different. It's a happy, lovely boy, and it's just a very happy moment.
So what happens now, Dr. John Zhang? What is the next baby that could be born to this treatment now? Is there lots of trials taking place?
Well, we know that there are thousands of this kind of family needs help. And of course, there are many alternatives, but I think this is definitely one approach, and can be in the near future become available internationally. So we hope that with our colleagues around the world, we can really help more families to have their dreams come true.
Well, what a title to have, a three-person baby technique pioneered by yourself and the team. Dr. John Zhang, thank you for sharing your insights with us.
Thank you.
For the first time ever, a man with a life-threatening heart disease successfully received a new heart from a genetically modified pig. Surgeons at the University of Maryland performing this groundbreaking procedure on 57-year-old David Bennett Sr. You see him right there. This is now giving hope to doctors and thousands of patients waiting for organ transplants. I want to bring in Dr. Robert Montgomery from NYU Langone here in New York City. He's an expert in this field who has worked, his work has actually helped contribute to this breakthrough. So Dr. Montgomery, thanks so much for joining Top Story tonight. We do appreciate your time. First of all, tell me about this patient and this surgery. It took place on Friday. From what you've heard, how is Mr. Bennett doing, and how will the next few days be for him?
Well, I had the opportunity to communicate with the team last night at Maryland. And, you know, as you saw, the patient is off the ventilator. He's still being partially maintained. His circulation is being partially maintained by an ECMO machine. But the plan is to gradually wean that off so that the pig heart will completely take over the work.
You know, when we first reported this, I used the phrase genetically modified pig. What exactly does that mean? Because some people may get confused with that.
Yeah, so this particular pig has had 10 different modifications in its genome in order to make it more acceptable to the human, both the human immune system, but also other, different pathways within the body, like the clotting pathway and something called the complement pathway, which allows the immune system to function normally. So it's had multiple different modifications to make it more compatible with the human system.
So you've received a heart transplant, I've been told yourself, for a genetic condition. If this transplant is successful, and by that I mean, to extend David Bennett's life for a period of time, his body doesn't reject it, what could this mean for the hundreds of thousands of patients across the country awaiting new organs?
Well, so look, this is, this is a really exciting moment for me personally, and my family, because I have a genetic disorder, or we have in our family. And so this gives us new hope, really, that, in the future, my children and relatives who inherited the same disease that I had, will have another option. I had 7 cardiac arrests before I was even deemed to be a candidate for transplant. And we have this dearth of availability of human organs, and pig organs could make up that difference between the organs that are available and the number of people who are waiting for life-saving transplants.
Warning: these Gentiles are attempting to imitate, duplicate, and in some cases, attempting to exceed the glory of the Most High. The explanations given for such actions are not acceptable in the sight of the Most High. Remember the Tower of Babel? Why? Because there is an established law for all the sons of Adam. The warning, 1 Timothy 6:20. O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science, falsely so called. Trust, number 1, is used of the correct knowledge and pure doctrine or teachings of the gospel, that is, good tidings or good news, to be held firmly and faithfully, and to be conscientiously delivered unto others. Profane, number 2. These are people, unhallowed, that is, unholy, not set apart, or ungodly people. Babblings, number 3, are empty discussions and useless matters, fruitless matters. Oppositions, number 4, a conflict of theories, and theories means thoughts or ideas. Science, Now, while people think they know the definition of science, the biblical definition here is number 5. It is knowledge, signifies in general intelligence, that is, understanding, the deeper, more perfect or complete and enlarged knowledge of this religion or faith, such as belongs to the more advanced, that is, because there are varying levels of understanding. Falsely so called, number 6, means untruly named, that is, not true by or in name. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to transpose the meanings of the words of 1 Timothy 6:20 with their definitions to get a better understanding. The warning transcribed. 1 Timothy 6:20. O Timothy, keep the correct knowledge and pure doctrine or teachings of the gospel, that is, good tidings or good news, avoiding unholy or ungodly persons and empty or fruitless discussions, and a conflict of thoughts and ideas, of knowledge or understanding, not true by or in name. The warning. When the Gentiles say, trust the science, what is the secular or worldly definition of the word science? Let's find out. From the Oxford Dictionary, we see the definition for the secular definition of science. As I said in a previous video, the archaic meanings that you find in definitions, they denote the original definition, as English words tend to change definition over time. So the Oxford Dictionary defines science as a noun. First, we're going to go to the archaic meaning since it is the original definition, and we see it in the box in orange. The archaic. Number 2, archaic. Knowledge of any kind. The sample sentence is his rare science and his practical skill. Synonyms for this word are learning, erudition, education, scholarship, letters, schooling, and science. The latter definitions for science. Number 1, the systematic study, because science is a study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experimentation, and the testing of theories against the evidence obtained. The sample sentence reads, the world of science and technology. Theories, we are going to define here later. 1.1, science is a particular area of science. Sample definition is veterinary science. And in definition 1.2, a systematically organized body of knowledge on a particular subject. And this is the most common definition that is understood today. The origin of the word science at the bottom, Middle English denoting knowledge. So it just means knowledge. From Old French, from Latin, scientia, from scire, know. The main modern sense developed in the late 18th century. So it's telling you the change happened in the 18th century. The main modern sense developed in the late 18th century. The definition of theory by the Cambridge Dictionary, a formal statement of the rules on which a subject of study is based, or of ideas that are suggested to explain a fact or event, or more generally, an opinion or explanation. Sample is economic theory, scientific theory, Darwin's theory of evolution. He has a theory that the whole was caused by a meteorite. And the thesaurus lists the synonyms as an idea, plan, thought, suggestion, brainwave, or brainstorm. Next, we'll take a look at what the word fact means. The Cambridge Dictionary defines fact as a noun. It means something that is known to have happened or to exist, especially something for which proof exists, or about which there is information. Sample sentences are, no decision will be made until we know all the facts, or in other words, what happened. I don't know all the facts about the case, meaning I don't know what happened concerning the case. I'm not angry that you took my car. It's just the fact that you didn't ask me first. So that is more of something where proof exists. He knew for a fact that Natalie was lying. There's proof that exists for that, in that the person obviously knew what the truth was and Natalie told a lie. It's sometimes hard to separate fact from fiction. Now, this is certainly true when it comes to listening to these experts and professionals talk about science. Now, the synonyms for the word fact are information, details, directions, instructions, and guidelines. So a fact does not necessarily mean that something is true. It means, again, something that is known to have happened or to exist, especially something for which proof exists or about which there is information. Now let's get to it. The law. Leviticus chapter 11, verse 7 and 8. And the swine or pig, though he divide the hoof and be cloven-footed, yet he cheweth not the cud. He is unclean to you. Of their flesh shall ye not eat, and their carcass shall ye not touch. They are unclean to you. Deuteronomy chapter 14 and 8. And the swine or pig, because it divideth the hoof, yet cheweth not the cud, it is unclean to you. Ye shall not eat of their flesh, nor touch their dead carcass. Our people love the swine, or as they like to call it, the pork. And they put pork in the form of bacon on almost everything. The judgment. Isaiah chapter 66 and 17. They that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the gardens behind one tree in the midst, eating swine's flesh or pig's flesh or pork, and the abomination and the mouse shall be consumed, that is, have an end or perish together, saith the Most High. Note, several Hebrew words have been translated into English as abomination. This definition means a filthy thing, an idol. Make abominable, make idolatrous, abhor, which means hate. These words are also derived from the root word that means hated by the Most High. The judgment. Psalm chapter 9, verse 16 to 20. The Most High is known by the judgment which he executed. The wicked is snared in the work of his own hands. Hagion, which means reflection or thought. Selah, which means pause for music or in music. The wicked shall be turned into hell, and all the nations, the Gentiles or heathen, that forget the Most High. And that also includes the unrepentant Israelites that forget the Most High. For the needy shall not always be forgotten. The expectation of the poor shall not perish forever. The needy and the poor are the Israelites. There are precepts for both of those in the scripture. Verse 19, arise, O Most High, let not man prevail. Let the heathen, the Gentiles or nations, be judged in thy sight. Put them in fear, O Most High, that the nations, the Gentiles or heathen, may know themselves to be but men. Selah.